Welcome back to the Cactus Quest channel. I am your host, Hunter, and in today's episode, I'm hanging out with my boy, Ali. And Ali is the owner of Amazing Aquariums and Reefs. Now, I came down here to bring him some pots. As you all know, I hand make pottery, and he's buying some from me today. But I figured, hey, you know what? There's so much similarity in the shapes of a lot of these corals and the cactus that we collect that I asked Ali if he'd be willing to show us around the shop, and he said, absolutely. So Here we are. These are two of Ali's oldest tanks. And can you tell us a little bit about the pulsating corals that you have in here, and the polyps and the filefish and everything?
Yeah. So that grown on the glass there is called pulsing xenia. Originated from the Red Sea. It's a beautiful coral, grows super fast, and it's been propagated for years in captivity. And it actually will naturally pulse.
You know what I was trying to, when I was looking at this earlier, I was trying to figure out what those little tentacles, you know, the things that are opening and pulsating, the little rosettes.
Yeah.
What those actual things remind me of, and I know what it is.
What is it?
They remind me of gecko feet.
Oh, yeah,
like they remind me of like the toes of like a gecko.
Yeah,
with those
you're right.
Kind of webbed, and they have that same almost, I don't know, they very much look like it. And then what's this little guy here? What's his name?
That's a little tasseled filefish, a little baby tasseled filefish. They get really big, so eventually I'm gonna have to rehome this guy. But for now, he's living a good life in this little tank.
And you know what's crazy is like this right here looks like some kind of a choya, that little two-stemmed coral there. That's a coral, yeah?
Oh yeah, that's a Gorgonian coral.
Gorgonian coral.
The type of sea fan, or and these are cool. These are all turtle grass, actual plants. The rest are, you know, living corals. These are all plants.
So that's what I was going to ask you. Now, the cactus and the coral, although they look very, very similar, and they both use photosynthesis, coral are actually not plants.
They're animals. They're in the animal kingdom, but they have a special algae in them called zooxanthellae, and that has a symbiotic relationship with the actual coral. So that algae lives on the coral skin or tissue and photosynthesizes, and that photosynthesis feeds the coral as well.
So the coral eat the algae. Now what do the algae get out of the deal?
The algae, I don't know. I guess they get a safe harbor inside the stinging cells or stinging tentacles of the corals.
Interesting. Okay, so they have a little bit of
They formed beautifully together.
Dude.
Yeah,
so
that's
this
cool.
here, what is this called?
That's a little zoanthid polyp. Really cool color, bluish purple.
Zoanthid polyp. And so this is different from like the polyp that you might get on your rectum or something like that,
No,
right?
I think it's the same one, actually. I think it's the same exact thing.
Dude, and that back there with the green center.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's a white striped trumpet coral, or the common name is a candy cane coral. That's a beautiful coral.
That is amazing.
And these are a different type of zoanthid, Palithoa grandis, giant zoanthids, basically. And what's interesting about these dudes is they have one of the most deadly toxin on the planet called palitoxin inside of them. So
Palitoxin?
Palitoxin, yeah. So you kind of have to be careful with these guys.
Have you ever gotten stung by any of your coral?
These on my nipples once, but
wait. Wait a second, dude. Wait, what? What is going on? What is happening here when the lights go out at night, dude?
I was just shirtless and I was transporting some stuff and accidentally rubbed one against her, and nipples are sensitive. What do you want to do? You know, it just kind of happens sometimes.
Dude, you know, they kind of actually are about the size of a nipple. You sure you weren't wearing them as like tassels,
It went perfectly like this. Bing.
Oh, my God, dude. And so then this big bunch back here.
That's a cool bubble coral. It's they call it a pearl bubble coral just because the little pearls in there, you know? Look at that little.
And so then, wait, so what are these like translucent tentacles
so
coming out of it?
Is that defense tentacles? They're
part of the bubble coral.
Yeah, they're called sweeper tentacles. So they'll grow these extra long sweeper tentacles to, you know, either protect themselves or to sting other corals that are close to them.
Wow. So wait a second. So there's other things back here. So you have What is that? That's a starfish?
Yeah, that's a little sea star.
A sea star.
This is actually a type of sea star, too, that you don't see in the trade too often. And this variety is interesting because most of these types of starfish, these feather stars or basket stars, they're very hard to keep in captivity. This particular species is long-lived and relatively easy to keep. However, they're very hard to tell the difference between the kind that are really difficult to keep. So I just tell people to avoid them just so you don't get the one that's hard to keep.
Amazing. That's so crazy. And then you've got, that's Finding Nemo, right? Isn't that the same thing?
That's
Poisonous?
No, the
Okay.
clownfish are not poisonous.
They're just hysterical.
They're hysterical, and they're actually super mean though sometimes.
Are they really?
They get very mean, but not even to the other fish. They get mean to humans.
Oh, really?
You put your hand in the tank, and dude just wants to attack you and bite you.
Interesting.
And there's many stories about.
Can you talk a little bit about like what you do as a propagator with the coral? Because you do in fact, which is the thing that I found to be a little bit fascinating, because they are in fact part of the animal kingdom, but in order to replicate them or create more of them artificially in cultivation, you propagate them as we do with the plants instead of breed them.
But this one I started as a little baby. He was about this big when I purchased them 3 or 4 years ago, and now it's really big. It looks like one piece, but there's actually 6 or 7 different sea anemones here. These anemones have the ability to split naturally, so that's how they propagate in the wild. They'll start with one, and over time it'll just naturally, whatever this is called, I'm sure there's a scientific term for it, but they do this, and they split. And then you get more and more of them. This is a Chicago sunburst anemone. A bubble tip anemone, but it's a really cool variant with the yellows and the oranges and a little bit of greens in there. Really, really cool. And it's one of my favorite things. Yeah,
right?
Absolutely. It's really hard to breed corals in captivities. Although I've done it, it's difficult, and it's not at the same scale. You know, whatever you produce is very minimal.
Right.
But if you actually cut them, either with the scalpel or a wet bandsaw, you could propagate them and take the little fragments and cuttings that you did, transplant those to smaller rocks or ceramic discs, and you attach them via super glue gel.
Really?
Yeah, it's if they have a skeletal base, it's really easy to super glue the little fragments onto a different piece of rock, and then they'll keep growing from there and get bigger and bigger, and you could cut them again as they grow again. So it's really cool.
And so these are some of your mother colony corals.
Yeah, yeah. So I take fragments of a lot of these corals, and there's a lot of other stuff as well. These are really cool. This is a long tentacle Gigantea sea anemone.
Now this one has a kind of an interesting little feature.
Yeah.
If you stick your finger in there, it kind of tries to grab a hold of it. Wants to kind of, you see that? Like it has like, ooh, where you
It's
going?
very sticky.
Where you going, baby?
It's very sticky.
Oh, yep. You can kind of feel it grab onto you. And so so they don't sting. You said if I were to let it get me on maybe a more sensitive part of the wrist, perhaps it might.
It depends how sensitive your skin is. But yeah, absolutely. If it gets you like on the bottom of the wrist, it could hurt, and it could be very irritating too.
Yeah.
Leaving little blisters behind. So generally you don't want to touch these things unless you have to.
Dude, tell me about that.
That thing is rad. It's called an elegance coral, and this one's cool because it has the nice little pink tips on it.
Yeah.
But look at the splatter in the middle.
Yeah,
it's
real.
Beautiful.
And it looks almost like you see that. It almost looks like human skin, where it's kind of. I mean, I don't know anybody that's quite that color, but man. And then all these little bumpy
little discosomas. Discosomas. They're mushroom corals. They call them sometimes.
I got to tell you, I love all the different names. Like it kind of. I mean, it's all very, very similar, right?
We call them mainly by their common names.
Okay.
And I'm sure it's very similar with cactus, too.
It depends on who you're talking to, right? Some people are more into the kind of, colloquial terms for the plants, and some are a little more botanically inclined and refer to them by their scientific names.
This is cool. It's looks like a little scape. And this just started with one little coralite, just, a couple polyps.
This? On the glass?
No,
or
the thing
little
behind it.
cityscape.
Yeah, the little cityscape. That just started with
What is that black fish?
That blackfish is called a black ting. That's a really pretty fish.
Are you swimming over those giant clams back there?
Yeah, look at those clams.
Dude, I mean, that's not the kind of clam anyone would eat, right?
Well, yeah, they do eat those. But where they come from, they're actually, in most places, they're protected. You know, it takes a long time for them to get massive, but those ones in the back, the Gigas clams, those will get almost 4 feet in length. They're amazing.
Fascinating.
They're true giant clams.
The more and more I look at them, like, I don't know whatever this is here, I'm going to point at this thing right here.
Yeah.
That looks like some type of a tephro-cactus to me.
Yeah.
Like, it really, really does. Like, I mean, almost exactly like a tephro-cactus, even more so in here. And when you start looking at these things, like a lot of them, it's kind of amazing to see
The different
all those
forms.
similarities. Look
Yeah.
at this little guy just sitting. It was so funny. Looked like he was sitting down, that fish. Oh, what is that back there? Do you have a...
Oh, that's another starfish arm.
Is it really?
Yeah, it's a different type of brittle star. It's really
Wow.
cool. The body hides and the tentacles come out to grab
Now,
food.
is this similar to the carpets over here?
It does look like it. It has the same folds and the long, but this is a coral, and this is called a sarcophyton coral or a leather coral.
Leather coral, okay.
And it's because when it closes up, it just looks like leather flesh. The
Wow.
tentacles will all go inside of it, but when it's open like this, it looks really cool.
That is amazing.
And so the clownfish, they don't know the difference. You know, if they don't have an actual real sea anemone, they'll opt for something similar. So
Right.
they'll go and hang out inside of that leather coral.
That's
instead.
really interesting. So, like this back here, this looks like a grafted Cachibianus with a bunch of heads on it, right?
That looks like a Cochibanus, yeah.
I mean, it's really fascinating.
Totally.
Now, the lights, these are like grow lights, essentially.
Yeah, they're LEDs. I have metal halides, LEDs, T5s.
I have a T. That's what I use. I use
Yeah.
T5 for my plants. Now, I'm just curious because the like if I were to move that, it's dark, but the vivid colors of these coral. I mean, is this kind of a trick that the blue light is causing to make them look so vivid? Or if I were to find these things when I was scuba diving somewhere, for
No,
instance,
they'll be
is that what they would look like
They'll
in the
be
ocean?
colorful in the ocean, but definitely when you accentuate the blue lights,
Okay.
the colors
Is this like
do
a
come
black
out more.
light for the old posters and stuff?
To an extent, it kind of is a little bit, but then it's not. The corals are actually this color. It's not bringing out fake colors. That's
Right.
the actual color of the coral. And corals will lose color, gain color. The healthier they are,
Sure.
they'll get more, pigments in them and
Well,
look better.
Well, because I know like with lithops and conophytum and things like that, as the old leaves tend to die back and dry out, the new leaf, they
Right.
almost look like a different plant
Yeah,
when they're coming out of it,
absolutely. Right,
you know?
right.
So I guess we have that same similarity. So if we want to start talking about cactus similarities, you've got, this looks like something out of Azoacea or some type of a mesem like Aloenopsis. Here's Aloenopsis, just for comparison. So, I mean, you really see very much like the coral. I mean, that looks like some type of a cactus. That thing back there literally looks like some type of a Tylocoden, and then that sucker in the back sort of looks like some type of a Pachypodium. You had mentioned to me that you kind of always knew that you were going to, at some point, get into collecting cactus.
Yeah. Some reason I was drawn to the cactus, and I think it's because they look like corals, but I like cactus even before, even when I was a little kid. I just like how they look so prehistoric and Jurassic, like something out of a dinosaur museum. Look at this. This looks like a coral, for sure.
I mean, dude, like you take it over
If that
here.
was underwater, no one would say anything. They would just think it belonged in the tank here.
I mean,
would not even bat an eye.
100%. And this is Mammillaria
Compressa
Johan?
Yokan?
Yokan?
Yeah.
You really love clumping, clustering,
Clumping,
globular,
yes.
stuff like that. Obviously, for the obvious reasons of it, they look like the coral.
Yeah, they look like coral colonies.
Yeah,
And look at this
and this
guy.
is definitely doing it. You've got like, I mean, it's obviously been super stressed.
Beautiful.
So you have like the original growth of the spines, and then the new heads coming out are super white. And this is the Mammillaria crucigera.
And
That's sitting
whose
pretty.
pot is that?
You know what?
Whose
I believe
pot
this
is that?
one of my pots. I handmade this with love, blood, sweat, and tears. And this is a throwback, man. This is one of the original ones, dude. You've been supporting the pottery since day one, bro.
yeah.
I gotta tell you, baby, I appreciate it. And then this, Titanopsis. So Titanopsis, I mean, I'm gonna spare you guys because you're gonna see it in the Mesa Gardens video. But I mean, those pustules are a lot like what you would see on stingray leather. And then another Mammillaria, dude. This is looking so beautiful. with the, that's the surface sand, yeah?
Yeah, it's actually reptile sand I use for this one.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah, yeah, with just for geckos or something.
Interesting, dude. And how does it water? Is water's fine?
Yeah, it's been doing fine.
But yeah, so you can even see like with the rocks and everything. I mean, it fits right in. Like, look at this. Look, it straight up looks like coral or an anemone. Hey, wait a minute. That's a variegated Troy pot.
That's a Troy pot. What's up, Troy?
My hash boy, baby boy, Troy. But yeah, man. I mean, I totally see it. Crassulanescem branthioides.
That totally looks like it belongs underwater. Like,
well, and that's the thing I was saying earlier. Was like the deserts used to be ocean, and this is what's growing there now. And the oceans used to be deserts and forests and everything else, and this is what's growing there now. So, I mean, again, I don't know. I'm not, you know, an evolutionary biologist or anything, so I couldn't say for sure. Are these similarities examples of convergent evolution? I don't know, but there's certainly similarities of things that you see in nature, these forms that seem to repeat themselves that are just absolutely stunning and beautiful, and make the pains of being human a little more bearable when you get to look at fascinating little tidbits of Mother Nature showing herself to you like that. And on that note, dude, I want to say thank you for having me out. And sure, if people want to hit you up on social media and contact you and say, hey, man, I'm going to buy some coral, come check out the shop or whatever, how do they reach out to you?
My Instagram is Amazing Aquariums and Reefs. Feel free to hit me up if you guys are interested about this stuff. I'd be happy to help, give you good, honest advice on how to set up the tank properly. I'm not a salesman or anything like that.
So I'll interrupt him and not let him do that, but I'll just tell you, not that we're here to even, I'm just showing you this stuff because I find it fascinating.
Yeah,
this is a plant channel. But I did actually go online this morning and I read some of your Yelp reviews. And dude, I was actually, because I'm a little biased because you're the homie, but the Yelp reviews were actually really good. And all of them said, he said he was going to do this, get me this. He did. He gave me honest opinion. He didn't have an elitist attitude, which I know you could feel that. You might go to certain nurseries in LA and you walk in and it's like a Supreme store. Nobody wants to talk to you. It's kind of weird, but whatever, man. I mean, yeah, so go follow him. Make sure you like and subscribe. And by the way, I'm getting ready to drop memberships on the channel. So I'll post the details and let you guys know exactly how that's going to work. But essentially, for a few bucks a month, you be a member. I'm going to give you access to a Discord server where you could ask me questions about plants, and I'll help you out with care tips and growing tips and all that kind of stuff, as well as early access to videos and member-only videos, because I'm working on some cool stuff that is not going to get monetized that y'all are going to want to see for sure. So thank you so much for being here. Until the next time, peace.